Well, hey there, Richard Petrie here, and tomorrow or today, depending on where you are in the world, you're scheduled to attend a webinar with me, Eric Bobrow and Enoch Sears, and we're getting very excited about presenting it for you. The guys have been working long hours. They are actually both asleep now, very tired, having worked through the training tomorrow. So it is a fresh training, and we're very, very excited about it. So this is the training, free online training for the cure for architects, lead starvation, the cure. So if you're suffering any of these symptoms, then it's going to be the right place for you to come to and make sure you attend. So if you've tried everything you can think of, projects come in fits and starts, and you think there must be a better way, then you're right. You should be there. If you're sick and tired and you're sick of that feeling in your stomach and that keeps you up at night and you're worried about when the next project will come in, then you should be there. Make sure you attend. And if you're so busy getting the current projects done, you haven't had time to look for new projects, then you'll know what it's like, those peaks and troughs which are no good. So just a quick note on this, please arrive 5 to 10 minutes early. We are going to have, there are hundreds of people registered for it. You'll want to bring a pen and paper, make sure you have that early and ready. There will be no replay for this, and it's going to go for about 90 minutes. So the key thing is get there 5 to 10 minutes early. This will be different to any other training you've ever attended. What we're going to be teaching here involves no selling, positions you as an expert, and has clients come to you in greater quantities than you can probably believe. We will step you through it. Now, what I want to do today is take you through a short preview training. I guess it's this will explain the psychology behind why what we're going to show you tomorrow works so well. So I know you spend, minimum 7 years training to be an architect, but the next 15 minutes may be the most valuable 15 minutes you've ever invested. So please just sit back, just take 15 minutes to let me go through this, and it'll really help you prepare for this webinar we've got on tomorrow. So a little question here, are you sick of being great at what you do, but being seen by your market as just another architect? I know that we wrote this article, the Silent War article, and we've had maybe 40, 50 people making comments. So I know exactly what you're feeling. I know it's very frustrating. And most people are paid just a little bit more, a little bit less than your peers. Now, I'm telling you that it doesn't have to be like that. Because in my experience of working with architects, it is 100% feasible that you could be charging 50 to 100% more than you are now. I know that seems pretty unbelievable, but just hold on and watch this little presentation. I'll show you the psychology of why. So what I'm going to show you is the psychology of why it can happen and how you can substantially increase your fees without resistance. Right now, you're going to learn how to position yourself as the go-to expert in your market. And once you're positioned as a go-to expert in your market, you'll be instantly able to charge higher fees. Buyers will seek you out and deals will close faster. It just works that way at the top of the pyramid. So the go-to expert. Okay, this is the same process, or very similar process to what B-list celebrities use to become A-list celebrities, and the same process A-list celebrities use as well. And you'll know that by the time I get to this end of the presentation, you'll understand that they're doing exactly the same thing. Now, the process works, even though the celebrities use it, it works even better in business because few business people understand it and use it. So you'll be one of the very few that understand this process. It would make it would make sense at this stage to start a lot of self-talk and being, saying, oh, well, I can't position myself as a go-to expert. I'm too young, I'm too new, or some other excuse as to why you can't be seen as an expert. But honestly, none of that matters. Your position does not rely on your ability, ironically. And I know it should, but it doesn't. That's very hard for some people to get their heads around. So if we're going to talk about fees and increasing fees, let's have a look at what fees are determined by. There's three things that determine fees: supply and demand for a particular type of service, your positioning, and the value you bring. Let me explain the value first. Okay, we're starting with number 3. Okay, there's an equation. PV plus IV equals TV. What do I mean by this? PV stands for practical value. That is the thing that your stuff does. I'll explain in greater detail with a good example in a minute. Right, IV stands for the intrinsic value. This is the unseen perceived value created by, among other things, your promotion and your positioning. And positioning is almost your pecking order, how you're perceived in the pecking order against all other architects. And the money is in the intrinsic value. Money is in the intrinsic value. Okay, now let me explain. And here's the proof. Let's have a look at the practical, the PV, the practical value of a car. Gets you from A to B, protects you from the weather. You can put stuff in it, and you can leave when you want, as opposed to the bus and being timed to a bus timetable. That's the practical value of a car, and pretty much any car can deliver that practical value. Okay, well, let's have a look at the practical value of a BMW 7 Series. Very well appointed, smooth, rides well, looks good, very dependable. You can put stuff in it, blah, 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 blah. Price range for a 2012 is 71,000 to 137,000, depending on the model and the year and the condition. All very good. Okay, practical value of a Rolls-Royce Ghost. Very well appointed, smooth ride, looks good, very dependable. You can put stuff in it. Okay, this is a Rolls-Royce Ghost. Pretty much the same thing. Okay, but hang on. Let's have a look at the price. $250 to $290. Now, that is kind of interesting. Why does a Rolls-Royce cost twice as much? Well, especially when they're practically the same car. Did you know that BMW owns Rolls-Royce? The Ghost is actually built on a 7 Series chassis. That's the BMW 7 Series chassis. The main differences are superficial. The body, the interior, the trim, and of course, the price. Interesting, right? The answer is this thing called the intrinsic value, the IV in that formula. Rolls-Royce is positioned as the best. So in terms of the pecking order, it's positioned higher than a BMW. If you drive a Rolls-Royce, you have a different identity than if you drive a BMW. You are perceived as a success, you're significant, and people will notice you. And this is what people are paying for. They want to be associated with those things. Now, the first step to increase your profit is to increase your intrinsic value, how you get seen in your marketplace. Why? Well, we've just sort of covered it. Because you're able to charge more, it increases the demand for you because there's less of you at the high end of at the upper end of the pyramid, and it improves the effectiveness of your sales process. So intrinsic value, this intrinsic value of a Rolls-Royce, for example, is built largely through positioning, where the car is seen to be perceived on the pecking order. You're paid most for your position in your marketplace. More proof. Ever wondered why some people get paid a lot more for doing the same work, or why some people are busy when others are struggling? Well, let's get away from architecture firms, because pretty much the same applies to them, but let's get away from architecture firms. Just why do big law firms charge more than the small ones? Are they the best lawyers, faster, better? No, they're often not. Actually, let's just go back to that one. They're often not. Sometimes a partner from a law firm might go and set up a private practice. He's not necessarily, he's often better. Now, often in the big law firms, your job, and same with accounting firms, and maybe even architecture firms, that the person who does your job might be a junior, but just being overseen by a senior partner. So the job that's being done is not necessarily better, but a big law firm will typically charge more. Okay, another example. Why does Donald Trump get paid $1.5 million per hour to speak? $1.5 million. Is he the best speaker, the best content, the most inspiring, the most articulate? To me, he's not. I don't think he's a great speaker. He's a good speaker. He's okay, but he's nothing special. There's a lot of people who are a lot better. How does he command that sort of fee? Well, it's just because he's Donald Trump. Then how the hell does he get paid so much? It's because of his positioning as a celebrity and an authority. Okay, so what we need to do is study this concept called a celebrity or authority, because it works with architects as well. There is a pecking order for architects in the market, and there are some who are seen as celebrities. There are certainly some who are seen as authorities. Let's just study that a little bit. Okay, you can charge more, increases demand, speeds up sales cycles. All very good. So question for you. Who do you know who's no more skilled than their peers, but is perceived and may be paid and in demand as a celebrity or expert? Do you know someone? They're no better, their skills are no better, but they are perceived as being higher up the pecking order. Conversely, do you know someone who's very good, but is not perceived as being high up the pecking order? And have a look at the pricing they're charging. In most cases, it is in your advantage to be seen as an expert authority, not as a salesperson. So salespeople sit right at the bottom of the chain. So it would look like this. The income of an expert and authority goes up as their power, as their perceived power goes up. Okay? So, you know, even higher than expert authority is celebrity in our culture. Celebrities are paid even more. You know, Angelina Jolie will get paid $25 million for a movie, whereas most of the rest of them are waiting tables in Hollywood serving coffee. Now, is her acting skills, I don't know, compared to someone receiving $10,000 for a role, or is it 20,000 times greater? No, but she's a celebrity, so her income goes massively up. So the last thing you ever want to be perceived as is just another architect. That's when all things go wrong. You need to be special, you need the power, and selling is about power. Okay, traditionally it's the buyer that has the power, and for selling your services as an architect, if you want to make that easy and for the price to be irrelevant, then when I say the salesperson, the person selling something must take the power away from the buyer. So here's the power. With the client, very high. With you, very low. That is not a good power situation when the client's got way more power than you. Conversely, it works quite well. Have you noticed it works quite well when you seem to have more power than the client? Have a think about two situations. I bet you've been in both. One where you're in, when you seem to have the power, and one when they do. Now, when you have it, it works a lot better. If you're equal, that's sort of okay as well. It's okay. Ideally, you want a bit more power. So let's have a look at where power comes from. I know this is a pretty quick little presentation, but this is very, very important. So this is how a pecking order gets established. And you need to know this term called ACE. So there is a pyramid. There is a pyramid, and at the top of the pyramid is where all the power is. There's a few people, and at the bottom there's lots of people, not much power. Okay, commodity. People who are perceived as a commodity will be right down at the bottom. Okay, so if you're ever competing as an architect and you feel like they see you as just one of a few and they're getting 5 quotes, you're down at the bottom. That's how they perceive you. Right at the top is the celebrities. And the bit further down is the authorities or the experts. And then just above the commodity is the, let's go back to that one, sorry, exclusivities or the specialists. Can you see how it is an advantage to be seen as a specialist in your market than it is to be seen as a generalist? You're moving up the rung. If you can then be perceived as an expert or authority, you move up again. If you're seen as a celebrity, you move higher and higher. And the higher you go, the more power you have. Okay, now you may be thinking, how do I get to the top? And you know, the good point is it can be manufactured. Okay, so the good and bad news, 90% of buyers will never know the difference between an expert and an average architect. So they look for clues. What are the clues? Well, here's one. Salespeople have brochures, or commodity people have brochures. Experts have books. Have a think about it. You know, what are some of the ways you know someone's an expert? The guy wrote the book on it. So here's what are the symbols of power that people look to. Now, having these things doesn't mean you are an expert, but it gives the perception you are. Okay, so here's some of the things that if you have these things in place, people assume you must be good. If you've written a book on the topic, you must be good. If you've been interviewed, you must be good. If you give speeches or presentations, the perception is you must be good. If you've received special awards or certifications, not essential, but if you've got them, you use them. If you charge higher prices, think about it. You know, if you're up for murder and you go to lawyers, do you ask for the cheapest lawyer? Probably not. You know, you probably go for the highest priced lawyer. You need the job done. And the only way for you to know is, one way, is price. How much does he charge? If you're talked about in magazines, newspapers, radio, TV, that is how people work out whether they think you're any good or not, and who you hang out with. Okay, these are the symbols of power. So as you can see, experts, celebrities have different tools they use, and these tools give off the perception as to how you're rated. Okay, as soon as you have a book, the immediate perception is he or she wrote the book on the topic. You're immediately perceived as an expert. So let's have a look at right at the top. Frank Gehry, Norman Foster, Tom Main. Have these guys done these things? Are they interviewed? Do they have books? Have they got articles? Have they got interviews about them? Yes, they have. Are you going to get to that level? Possibly not, but you can possibly tuck your way under them in your little niche of the woods. So, you know, to use general terms, a psychologist might be at the bottom, someone who's a sleep specialist would be higher up, someone who is an author or a conference speaker would be further up the tree, perceived. Now, the guy doing the conference speaking, or who's the author, isn't necessarily any better than the guy at the bottom, but he looks like he's better, and therefore he can charge higher prices. Dr. Phil, Oprah, now we're starting to get into the celebrities, Obama. Now, Frank Gehry, those guys up the top. Okay, so let's just have a look. Can you know, all that stuff I talked about before, can they be manufactured? Well, yes, they can. Up the top right here, we've got a book. And this is a book that Mona's written, as an example. Wrote the book, got it registered, got a barcode, bang, she's an author. We now describe her as an author. Has she been interviewed? Yes, she's been on Intrinsic, Business of Architecture. She then takes that article, puts it in her newsletter, and lets everyone know that she's been interviewed by an American guy that deals with all the top performers in the architecture world. She got herself in, over here we're in newspapers and magazines. Now this is all stuff you can do. You don't need to necessarily hire a marketing coach to do this. Okay, this is stuff that can be done. And this is how you move yourself being perceived up the pyramid. And as you're perceived as being higher up the pyramid, it becomes easier and easier to charge higher prices, and actually people start coming to you. Okay, so if you can understand the psychology behind this power pyramid concept, we're going to show you in detail how to set up systems in the webinar that's coming up very soon that you'll be attending. But I just wanted to give you this sort of psychological background between how this power pyramid works. So I hope you enjoyed that. But I hope you enjoyed it, and we're looking forward to giving you the nuts and bolts details of how to generate the leads and convert them, get them to appointments, and get them to clients. And I think understanding this little background would be really helpful for you. So I hope you enjoyed this. Really enjoyed putting it forward to you, and look forward to catching up with you guys tomorrow or today, depending on when you watch this. Okay, speak to you soon.